and welcome back to the DoneDeal YouTube channel, and today we're joined by this very mean and aggressive looking machine. It is the Audi Q3. However, it's not just any Q3, it's actually the Sportsback, which makes it a coupe SUV. And we're going to be talking about the main differences between the ordinary Q3 and the Q3 Sportsback, along with what it's like to drive, the different engines, and of course boot space, and all the usual things in this review. Now, it's worth noting that the difference in price between a Q3 and a Sportsback Q3 is about €1,000, and actually prices start at about 43,000 euros. This is a plug-in hybrid. Price for those start around 48,000 euros. Actually, this one's really well spec'd. It has a massive list which we will be running through, and this costs a little over 62,000 euros. So it's definitely expensive, but it does look the part and it's got all the bells and whistles. Now, if you'd like to search for Audis for sale in Ireland, we've got over 1,000 trusted dealerships nationwide. You can hit the link up there. Now let's get into the review. In terms of styling, the front is more or less absolutely identical to the normal Q3. From the side, you'll notice the biggest change is that the rear roofline swoops down. That makes it a coupe. From the rear, again, it carries forward. You can see that the glass panel on the rear is almost at a slant as opposed to vertical on an ordinary Q3. Also, the rear spoiler looks really nice. And you've got these, now I don't know what the technical term is for this, so I'll leave it up to you guys in the comments, but I'm going to call them the side spoilers on the rear. Actually, they add to it quite a lot. Boot space. Now, this is probably where you're expecting me to say, oh, unfortunately, because it's a coupe, you suffer the consequences, but you don't. Somehow, Audi have created an amazing amount of magic, and this boots 530 litres, as is the ordinary Q3. I think it's to do with it being a slightly longer wheelbase, but regardless, the boot is actually still quite practical. There's a small bit of storage under here, the seats fold down, so as a whole, it is a good functional boot and you're not really suffering too much. But let's check out rear passenger space and see what that's like. In here now, it has to be said, it's a little bit tighter than I was expecting. As you can see, I'm only joking with you. So the Q3 Sportsback is actually quite versatile back here. I really like that you can adjust the seats that way. I can see that being very useful in the day-to-day, particularly with kids, or if you're throwing stuff in the back. And actually, on the point about kids, there's ISOFIX points here, both either side. There's also an armrest that comes down here, and you've got drink holders. And as a whole, back here, it's decent for leg room. Headroom, again, it is that coupe SUV, so you're always going to lose a bit of headspace, but they've done a good job of kind of making it happen behind the headrest for the most part, which does actually help quite a lot. But yeah, it's definitely not as big as the ordinary Q3 in terms of headspace. So we'll take a quick look at the inside, and then we'll go off for a little bit of a drive. Now, in here, it's very Audi, and I mean that in the best way. It is a very familiar place, but it's also really well built, and it does make you feel very special. I'm actually going to say it feels nicer than you would expect a Q3 to feel. So it's push start. Now, there are some upgrades in here, things like the steering wheel and also the virtual cockpit. We'll be talking about them a little bit later, but the virtual cockpit is absolutely fabulous. I can't recommend it enough. And then over here, this whole system, it's actually the same more or less that you get on an e-tron GT, and that's great. And A6, it's all very similar and very intuitive. Apple CarPlay is actually wireless, which is brilliant, so you don't need all the cables and all that. Mind you, you do still have 2 USB-C charging points. In terms of the rest of the infotainment system, it's all very typical of the Audi and the Volkswagen group. It's incredibly easy to use, and you should have no issues whatsoever, and the touch is so quick and so responsive. Then I do like climate control is all separate. For a while there, you'll see on like our A6 review, there was 2 screens. Now they've gone back in even some of their more high spec cars to the kind of buttons for the climate control, really handy. And then down here you've got your volume, your push start, some storage, some more storage down here, drink holders. I love this on all Audi cars. I think I say it in every review, but being able to adapt and adjust your armrest to just where you like it is glorious. There's a little glove box in there. It's actually quite big, to be fair. And as a whole, as I said, it's amazing to sit in it. Heated seats, the whole lot. So I think the next thing to do is go for a drive. So to drive, I can only imagine the Q3 Sportsback drives more or less identically to the Q3. The only difference is obviously you've a little bit less rear visibility, but I'm sure you'll get used to that in life. And actually, when it comes to parking, you've got reversing cameras, which helps, and big mirrors as well, which always makes a big difference. Then around town, it's quite lovely to drive, and at this point I should let you know that this is the plug-in hybrid version, which does cost a little bit more money, but for that you're getting a car that has a petrol engine which is turbocharged, and it combines it with an electric motor, and you end up getting 245 brake horsepower, which is a lot. But more importantly, around town it means you can actually drive in pure electric mode, and I really like the way you do it. There is a shortcut button, but you can also just pull the gear stick back and e-tron mode comes on, and the claim range is actually over 50 kilometers and that, which is very impressive. I think in the real world, in cold conditions in Ireland, it's more realistically probably in the high 30s, early 40s. I also like that if you pull it back one more time, you get e-tron mode battery hold. Now a lot of cars have this, and what that is it saves, let's say, 23 kilometer range, and it won't let the car actually go below that. However, usually you have to do it in the infotainment system, and it's a bit of a faff, whereas it's very easy on this, which I like. In terms of the turning circle, it's all really good for driving around town. It's not that large of a vehicle, so even though it's an SUV, it still is quite narrow. It feels the size of an Audi A4 or something, so it's nice to maneuver. And then I do want to talk about it being fun, because a lot of SUVs are not that enjoyable to drive. Just the suspension's not that engaging, the steering's a little bit loose. Now there is a few modes, and if I put it into dynamic mode, so you can use these paddles but you don't really need to. This is a good point to reinforce that it's 245 brake horsepower. To put that in perspective, a Golf GTI Performance Pack from 2020 was 245 brake horsepower. And when you put the foot down, it has a good grunt, but it really does move, and it's got some decent brakes. It's pretty engaging on the steering, and it is a Sportsback, so it's nice that it's actually sporty. It could benefit from a differential that locks, because at lower speeds when you put your foot down the wheels do spin, but I have to say it's quite fun. Cayman, the man behind the camera, not the Porsche, has just said that it feels like it shouldn't be able to go that fast for the size of it and be that nippy and handle the way it does, and that's exactly it. You got to remember, this also has batteries, and it's taking the corners on these mountain roads like it's nothing. Now to pull it back and to put it back into comfort mode, it is smooth enough around bumps. The suspension is definitely a little bit more rigid than some of the larger SUVs that Audi have on offer. And on top of that, one cool thing I must note is there is a little bit of regenerative braking, which is bringing power back in to the batteries to kind of, I wouldn't say increase the range, but at least help protect it. Have to say, I actually quite like those door handles, a little bit unusual. Now earlier on I said that this was spec'd to about 62,000 euros, and truth be told, there's quite a lot of optional extras. In fact, there's over 7,500 euro worth of optional extras. So I'm going to run you through quickly some of my favourite, and the first for 706 euro is the black styling pack. You'll see it there, and you'll also see it on the grille. The stunning flat bottom steering wheel, 287 euros, and behind it the virtual cockpit, 307 euros. Both actually probably worth spending. Adaptive cruise control, 500 euro. You get it for free on a Yaris. And last but not least, now brace yourselves, maybe take a seat for this one. The wheels. These 19-inch matte kind of diamond cut finish wheels cost 3,419 euros. That is literally more than my first car cost. Now if you are looking to get a Q3 or any car for that matter, when it comes to speccing it, go down to your local dealer, take it for a test drive and get their insight into all the specifics. But a quick run through here on the Q3 Sportsback of the specs and of course the engine. So In terms of the specs, it comes in SE and S line, so quite simple actually. And the S line obviously is the superior. It comes with some bigger and different wheel options, also some color coded bonnets, some nicer seats and a few other little bits. And then in terms of engines, well, underneath the bonnet. Now I didn't practice this before we did this, so it could take me 5 minutes. No, I got quite lucky there. Underneath the bonnet, as we said, this one is the plug-in hybrid. However, there is also a diesel and petrol version, both of which are 150 horsepower, and you can get them actually in manual or automatic. In terms of which one you should go for, well, that's completely up to you and your driving style. Obviously, if you're driving a lot around the city, then the plug-in hybrid, it just makes so much sense. But if you're a motorway mile muncher, then go for the all-out diesel. It's probably still the best thing to buy, even now in 2022, for people doing a lot of mileage. Now, if you're an enthusiast, you could always get the Audi Q3 Sportsback, which is 400 horsepower, and that thing would be an absolute weapon. Mind you, it costs over 100,000 euros. So there you have it, that's DoneDeal's review of the Audi Q3 Sportsback. Now, overall impressions is it's fantastic. The look of it, it's such an aggressive car and has so much presence to it. And even though it is the baby of the Audi SUV range, it still is quite large, to be fair. And I definitely think it looks fantastic. Now, if it was my money, I'd actually probably go for the ordinary Q3. I don't necessarily see the need to go for the Sportsback. However, there is a certain niche customer out there and they like it, and I'm sure they'll be very happy. Let us know what you choose in the comments. But a big thank you for watching today's review. If you have enjoyed it, please make sure to subscribe and leave any feedback in the comments. And of course, if you are searching for a new car, then make sure to check out DoneDeal's Trusted Dealer Network on the link up there. You can buy with confidence and you can buy securely. Until the next one, thanks so much for watching.